Welcome to the Pseudoregalia Any% Beginner's Guide. In this video, I'll be going over all the tricks you need to learn to complete an Any% no out of bounds speedrun. If you came across this video and have absolutely no intention of ever speedrunning this game, you will still be able to find a lot of tricks that will make playing Pseudoregalia even more enjoyable. In the description of this video, you can find several links to different resources that I use in this video. If you find my voice annoying or would rather not listen to a guy explain speedrunning tricks for 20 minutes, you can always make use of the Google Doc that goes over the same tricks as this video. This document contains detailed explanations and GIFs to help you figure out things at your own pace. I will also be making use of timestamps throughout this video. Feel free to skip between different tricks however you like. Do know that a lot of tricks build upon others, and so you will probably have to learn even the most basic tricks first before you can get to the really cool stuff. I hope you enjoy. Before I get into resources that you can use to make practicing runs a lot easier, I would firstly recommend to make a copy of your Pseudoregalia folder in Steam and create a Pseudoregalia practice folder. And then you can dump all your mods and things that you need to practice for your speedrun in this separate folder. Now, as you can see, I have 4 different versions of Pseudoregalia. The second version you see right here is the actual official version of Pseudoregalia, and the other 3 versions are just different folders I have made to do practice or do Pseudoregalia randomizers, etc. In order to add one of these things to Steam, you add them through the Add Non-Steam Game button down to the left here, and then you can click Browse and try to find the folder where you put your practice file. In my case, I named it Pseudoregalia Practice. You click on the Pseudoregalia executable, and then you click Open, and there you go. You have now added it to your Steam. The reason why we do this is because this allows you to still use the controller. I've personally had some problems where Pseudoregalia wouldn't pick up my controller inputs anymore, and when I linked the fake Pseudoregalia folder to my Steam, it started working again. Let's get into some of the resources that you can use to make practice easier. So first you have the Position Saver mod by Mian. The Position Saver mod allows you to save any position in the game and return to that position later. In the video description, I will also put my personal settings for the Position Saver mods that I will be using sometimes throughout this video, so that you can easily find spots to practice certain tricks. Next is the Speed UI mod. The Speed UI mod adds a little text and bar at the bottom left of your screen that allows you to see how fast you're going. This can be very helpful because some of the tricks throughout this run will require you to do certain actions very quickly, and if you don't do them quickly enough or precise enough, then you won't gain as much speed as you can, and the difference between speed can be kind of big sometimes. So before we even start with anything, I think it's important to go over the controls. There are a couple tricks throughout this run that require you to use the jump button and the slide button at the same time, and very quickly after one another. The default button for slide is on your left trigger, and to see why this is bad, we have to look at my input display. When I use my left trigger, you can see that I can half press it, fully press it, and it takes some time for the button to be fully pressed. And because it takes a long time, I mean, sort of a long time, to fully press the left trigger, it means that making precise inputs with the left trigger is a lot harder. In order to fix this, we switch the default button for slide, which is the crouch thing. We switch that to one of the face buttons. I like to use the bottom button, which is the X button on PS5 controllers, to crouch, and I like to switch my jump button to the rightmost button or the circle button on my PS5 controller. The other button people like to swap out would be the attacking button. The attacking button is currently set to the leftmost face button, which would be the square button on PS5 controllers. And because there are some tricks that use both the slide button, which is the bottom face button, and the jump button, which is the rightmost face button, it gets a little complicated to use all these buttons with only one hand. So in order to fix that problem, we switch the attack button to the L1 button, the leftmost button at the top. And because the throw weapon input is also bound to the left shoulder button, the L1 button, we switch the throw weapon input to the left trigger, because throwing your weapon never really requires precise inputs throughout this run. It is good to know that Pseudoregalia currently has an issue where switching your controls and closing the game afterwards actually doesn't properly save the controls. So every time you close the game and open it up again, your controls will be slightly messed up, which means that some buttons might overlap even though you never set them that way. And so unfortunately, for every time you close the game, like I guess every other day, if you try a run every other day, you will have to reset your inputs and go over the different inputs I went over in this video once again. It's a little annoying, but there's currently no fix for this issue. The very first trick can actually be practiced from the very start of the game. Pseudoregalia has 2 cutscenes, I think. That's how many we get throughout the any percent route anyway. So a cutscene skip by itself isn't really a trick. However, we can skip these cutscenes a lot earlier than it looks by buffering our inputs. When you are already holding the button to skip a cutscene, you can initiate the skip early. So this can be done at the very start of the game, and right around the end of the game, when you have to fight the princess, you have to open these big doors with all the keys you've collected. And that door opening animation is also a cutscene that can be skipped. In total, this saves about 2 to 3 seconds. So it's a nice little time save for your runs. The next trick makes use of Sybil's attack animation. You see, Sybil has a string of 3 attacks, and the string consists of 2 small ones and 1 final big swing. This big swing makes us unable to do any actions, moreover, makes us unable to do another attack for a while. Now, when you try to cancel this attack normally, it takes quite some time before you can initiate another 2 combo string without triggering the final attack. The game really wants you to do that 3rd attack. However, this changes when you are hitting an object or an enemy. So to be absolutely clear, this only works when you are hitting something. When Sybil hits something, the time it takes before you can initiate another 2 attack string becomes a lot shorter. This trick can be a little tricky to pull off, but if you practice it enough and understand the rhythm, you'll be able to use it throughout your entire run. The next trick is called a gainer, and we will only use it like twice, maybe once per run, well, by itself. More about that later, but for now all you need to know is that a gainer allows you to get a little extra height. And the gainer makes use of a jumping mechanic that's similar to the side flip you might know from Mario 64 or Mario Odyssey. And all you have to do to get it in this game is move forwards or any direction, quickly snap back your control stick to the other side, and hit jump. When you do this, you'll see that Sybil gets a little more height and starts jumping in the opposite direction. We want to use this mechanic and change it a little bit. Instead of snapping your control stick back once and then jumping, you want to quickly snap your control stick back, then forwards, and then jump. This tricks the game in thinking that we want to do a backflip, but makes the momentum go forward instead, allowing us to easily climb up some higher obstacles. The next trick makes use of a core mechanic platformers use to make jumping from one platform to the next feel nice and smooth. This mechanic is called Coyote time, and it allows us to cross bigger distances than we are technically supposed to. One of the clearest examples of this can be found in Celeste, where you are able to jump even after you've already walked off the platform. In this game, we only really use this mechanic a couple times, but just like gainers, Coyote jumps become a lot more useful when combined with other tricks. More about that later. For now, all you need to know is that it's possible, and here's an example of using Coyote time properly And then here is the same example, except we don't use Coyote time at all. And as you can see, the first time we were able to make the ledge, and the second time we weren't even close at all. The next trick makes use of another trick, what we call slide cancelling. And slide cancelling has two different versions. For this specific version, we want to initiate a slide and then move our control stick in the opposite direction and press jump. When you time this correctly, you'll see Sybil do this really over-the-top skid animation. And this animation is very similar to the skid animation you get when you are preparing for a gainer. When we combine slide cancel with the things we learned to do a gainer, we're able to use a Ultrahop. This is the best way to get height in the entire game, and the speed is also a big plus. This trick can be a little tricky, so let's go over it very slowly. First, you want to use your slide and cancel it with holding your control stick in the opposite direction and jumping. Then, right after that, you want to move your control stick towards the direction you want to be going in and use another jump. When you do this correctly, you'll see Sybil do an Ultrahop with a blue trail. The blue trail signals that you got some of the most speed and height possible. It is possible to get a worse version of the Ultrahop without a blue trail, which happens when you're either too slow or didn't time your inputs correctly. This is a pretty easy trick to practice, as it can be done anywhere, but it's also very important that you can do it 100% of the time. The trick is absolutely essential for the speedrun. The next trick makes use of the second iteration of slide cancelling. This slide cancel is much simpler. All you have to do is use the slide and then cancel it using a jump. This will quickly stop Sybil from sliding. We want to do this to be able to pull off a Glidehop. Glidehops are some of the fastest ways to travel across the map in the entire game, and they can be performed as long as you have a big enough space to do 2 slides. Let's look at this trick in slow motion to find out how it works. First, we use slide, then we cancel that slide with jump while initiating another slide at the same time. This makes Sybil do this really strange skid animation where she lights up yellow. When we follow the skid animation up with another jump, we can use the momentum we gain from sliding and transfer that onto Sybil as she initiates the jump. Through this, we are able to make Sybil get some of the most speed in the entire game. This trick is very important for any runner who wants to quickly move from point A to point B. You are also able to maintain this speed somewhat by carefully timing your jumps as you land. We call these jumps bunny hops. Good bunny hops allow you to maintain a lot of speed. I usually only lose 20 to 40 speed when landing, and even that could be a lot better. When you don't do your bunny hops correctly, which here's an example of, you see that we lose a lot of speed very quickly. Now again, this is a really hard trick. It took me about 4 days to get this 50% consistently. And in a real-time run, when you might have some nerves, you might have to fight Princess in a little bit, it could get a little hard to pull this off. How do you actually want to pull this off? Some people use the control bindings that I went over in this video, so that they're able to use their jump button and their slide button by simply using their thumb. So as you can see, I'm clicking both buttons at the same time using my thumb. Now, this is probably the best way to get it fast and get it consistently. However, as you can see, even I can't quite do this quite yet. An alternative solution to this would be by using your pointing finger and your middle finger. You click the slide button with your pointing finger or your middle finger, however you did the control setup, and you quickly follow it up by using both fingers at the same time. And then finally, you finish it by only using your other finger for the jump. So if you look at my input display, I could get it quite consistently like that. This works better for me, but the thumb solution could also work. It is whatever you prefer. It is called a Coyote slide jump. Again, the Coyote jump happens when you are walking off a ledge and you get a slight advantage, which allows you to still jump even though you're falling down. Now, this trick is kind of difficult. At least I think it's kind of difficult. I have talked to some other people who have said that they actually don't struggle as much with CSJ, so this is really a personal preference thing. Throughout my routes, I will make sure to give you several different ways to approach a problem. So sometimes you can go for a Ultrahop example, and the other time you could go for a CSJ example, whatever you want. Anyway, the CSJ happens by sliding off a ledge. As you are falling off the ledge, you cancel your slide with an attack, and right after you attack, you input a jump. And when you do that correctly, you are able to get a lot of speed and the normal amount of jump height while moving forwards. This can be used right here, although I find it to be quite risky, because if you fail and fall down, then you lose a bunch of seconds. If you do want to use it here and risk falling down and losing some time, you can do it just like that. Now, once more, I'll slow it down in post. We slide down the ledge, then we use an attack as we're falling down the ledge to cancel our slide. And because of Coyote time, we are still able to input a jump, which allows us to get both jump momentum upwards and forwards momentum from the slide. For the next trick, I would recommend using the F7 key with the warp mod to transport yourself to this area, which is right outside of the castle. Now, for the next trick, this trick makes use of the Sungreaves. Sungreaves allows you to kick, and when you kick a wall, it sends you the opposite direction. Now, these kicks are kind of weird, because the hitbox for Sybil's leg are bigger than they look, which kind of makes sense, but we can use it to break the game a little. You see, if I hug this wall, or jump into the wall, and use my kick backwards, you'll see something strange happen. As you can see, I'm gaining forwards momentum while still being able to also climb up walls. Now, here comes one of the harder parts of this run, which sadly you can't really get around. So you're going to have to practice this a lot, unfortunately, which is the reverse wall kick trick. Now what we do is we use a Ultrahop to get as close to the wall as we can get, and to get as much height as we can get. And then we're going to do 3 to 2. It depends on how well you did your Ultra, to get up on the ledge right over there. Now, this is a pretty easy trick to pull off once, and it gets a little harder when you want to pull it off several times in a row. The best way I found of doing it is by not rushing the backwards motion of your joystick. It is of course a lot faster to just do the reverse wall kicks very fast, but for your first few runs, don't have to worry too much about actually going that fast. Just make sure that you get your wall kicks in. Now, another way we can use our wall kicks is actually not by using the wall kick directly, but by using the kick input and cancelling it quickly. This can be helpful if you want to get a little bit more distance but don't want to kick yourself away from the wall again. So by doing a kick and then a attack, you cancel the hitbox for the wall kick, and you'll be able to get up ledges. So for example, right here, you could see I did it a little bit wrong the second time, but the third time it worked. I cancelled my kick by using a slash, and that allowed me to get forwards momentum to be able to grab this ledge. Then after grabbing the cling gem later in the run, I assume you have in order to be able to beat the game, otherwise props to you. We can kind of abuse the cling gem. You get 6 charges, and we can use these 6 charges to gain more height. You see, when we use cling gem in a corner like this and move our camera slightly, we can keep jumping into the wall and gain more and more height. The following trick is useful if you mess up with, let's say, one of your Wallkicks. Sunsetter allows you to ground pound the floor, and once you hit the floor, you get a lot more height upwards. Now, if you use this in the air, you can use Sunsetter and cancel it with jump and get this weird backwards jump. Now, you could use this with, let's say, a wall kick to get even more height. Now, if you want a spot where you can very easily try out this trick and where it's actually useful, which, you know, you're going to use it in my route as well, it would be right here. Now, we want to get up there, and in order to do this, we would normally have to hit these balls, but in the routes that we're doing right now, we will never get the upgrade that allows you to bounce off of these balls while attacking them. So instead, we will use a combination of Sunsetter, or Sunsetter cancelling, I'm not sure how it's actually called, and Sunsetter itself to get more height, which would look like this. As you can see, I used a wall kick, then I did a Sunsetter cancel to get a little bit of extra height and get up here. Now, right here you can do this, 2 fast wall kicks after one another, and then cancel your momentum after the side kick with a Sunsetter cancel. Now, I can sort of understand if you're getting sick of learning all these tricks, and I have good news for you, because this is the very final trick that you will need to learn. The final trick has to do with Strikebreak. Strikebreak is this extra long attack that you need to charge, and it does more damage than just a regular combo. Now, for the princess fight, we would like to use the Strikebreak as much as possible. And the way the princess fight works is that she actually teleports after you've hit her and a little bit of time has passed. And because the window for you to attack her after she did an attack is so small, we can usually only get 2 strike breaks in. However, if you use strike break cancelling, then you can actually get 3 hits in. Now, it isn't quite a cancel, it's more of a fast strike break. You see, strike break makes this noise when you fully charge it. However, the noise is kind of a misdirection. It is possible to charge up and release a strike break before the noise even plays out. As you can see, did it a couple times there. So yeah, you can use that to get 3 hits in to Princess instead of 2. Seeing the time it took me to make this whole video, I kind of blabbered on sometimes with the tricks, but I hope that helped you understand the tricks a little bit better. I will make a separate video where we will go over the full route that will make use of all the tricks you've learned in this video. So stay tuned for that one. I will also make another video where I go over all the different attacks the princess can do and the ways we can deal with those attacks and how you want to approach the princess fight as a whole. for your speedrun.